Buy, deliver with the two-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester, Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasin, the Racin.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasin the Racin, episode 75. And we're delighted to be joined by the British Supersport champion, Mr. Rory Skinner. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, Chrissy. Thank you for having me on.
I do apologise for the packet of the midget, rustling of the midget gens.
There we go. I tell you what, that has got to be the most polite phone voice I've ever heard. Like 2 minutes ago, you were actually Scottish. That was borderline English. Hello, Christopher. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on the show.
I've not got that bad an accent.
Not away, I know, but you're going to loosen up and we're going to go back to being Scottish. But first of all, congratulations. Let's be honest, it looked boring. You know, you just cleared off in the front and won a championship. Congratulations.
Thank you. You know, it was actually really enjoyable. It was that whole race there, it was like I spent mainly doing skids. It was just quite fun and just enjoyed riding my bike.
Mm-hmm. Just for the context, we're at Brands Hatch, final race of the season. You wrapped up the championship at Donington Park last time out. So this weekend coming, obviously running the number 1 plate, and it must be a good honour to get it wrapped up so early as well.
Yeah, definitely. You know, to get the championship wrapped up around early, it was just one of those. You could come into the last round. There's no pressure. Nothing's worse than going into the last race of the season. You're like paranoid that something might happen.
Thanks for reminding us.
Oh yeah, sorry, Chrissy. But yeah,
just rubbing it in.
Yeah, it was nice to get it wrapped up, and it was to have the races. Well, race today, it was just good fun really. Just go back to enjoying riding your bike.
Yeah, there was a couple of laps into Druids. That was. I think it went a little bit.
It was pretty loose.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It's fantastic. So, am I right in saying you've won 9 out of the 10?
I think it's 9 out of 11 now, isn't it?
9 out of the 11 races. So what's the plan? So we're here on Saturday night.
Yeah.
You've got one more race to go.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be rude not to.
It'd be rude not to. You're not going to spice things up and go from the back and have a shot from there?
Danny Buchan did that in Superstock here.
Yeah.
I think it was after he'd won the championship, so he purposely had an issue with his bike to start last, and he still won the race from the back.
I don't know. I think I'll just try and go from the front. So,
Yeah, might as well.
Keep...
Might as well. There we go. But so, okay, that's the present at the moment. I think, what I need to know, desperately need to know, where did it all begin for you? You know, your first experience on a motorcycle. Let's go for it.
I mean, I've been around bikes my whole life. There's not a point I look back and go, oh, that's when the bikes came into it. It was like, honestly, there's pictures of me on my dad's bike when I was 6 months old. It was my dad's race bike at Knockhill. So I've been about the paddock since I was, literally not even being able to speak. So bikes have always been a part of it. My dad bought me my first bike when I was 18 months old. I wasn't actually able to ride it, so I just sat on it and moved my head like I was leaning. But
what bike was that then?
It was a PW50.
Shut up, man! Straight in the deep end. There we go.
Did your dad race himself?
Yeah, my dad's done a bit of everything really. He's done a bit of what you've done. Not the roads. He's done the Northwest 200 twice. He's done a bit of motocross, a bit of British Supermoto, and a bit of road racing up in Scotland.
Bloody hell, fantastic! What classes did he go in?
He rode, I think it was a stock 1000. He rode the first ever Appleyard SV4 in the country there. At the Northwest. It was literally the one closest to the cab of the truck when it came into the country, and he got it, and it was the shop's demonstrator, and he'd taken it up to the Northwest.
Demo bike, low miles, never been thrashed or ridden before. Northwest 200, one oil change.
Rode it from down south up to the shop, and that was that run in. So a bit of Fablon over the lights, and you're good to go.
Fantastic.
And just explain whereabouts in Scotland are you from?
We're from Perth, so we're like about 45, 50 miles just north of Edinburgh.
Right. So I take Knockhill. Well, there's only really Knockhill and East Fortune.
Yeah, Knockhill and East Fortune. Knockhill's 25 minutes from my door, depending on how quick you drive.
That's the thing. You know, you and me whinge sometimes about how there's no infrastructure whatsoever, like in the northeast or in general for motorcycle racing. So heavy. We were having a bit of crack before this got going, and one of my favourite things about Scotland is the fact that Scotland as a nation seems to regurgitate absolute fantastic riders out of their arse every blue moon. It's brilliant. Steve Hislop, the Mackenzies, like Paul McClung, who's packed in, and I'm trying to think, you got Lewis Rollo and Stock 1000, and obviously yourself. It is brilliant. So,
and obviously John McPhee's sort of representing us in Moto 3 World Championship as well. It's for a country with only 2 small kind of I don't want to say Mickey Mouse, but they're not Grand Prix, circuit.
I mean,
it's mad
Knockhill's not bad. I'd say East Fortune's maybe a little bit more on the
Yeah, sort of.
on the old school side.
I personally love it. Have you ever been round East Fortune?
No, it's one of the
You're
only
joking.
tracks.
It is a good track. It's so much fun to ride, but it's if you go off track, you're in the tatty fields.
No, the best thing is though when you run out. No. The best thing. No. Like after that, you're on the East Coast main line, 120 mile an hour trains.
Hit by the train, you'll end up in London in 4 hours.
That's pretty much the cracking. Honestly,
You know, speaking about Scotland, my favourite thing about Scotland, you've just sort of touched on it, tatty scones. Absolutely. Like, every time I go up to Edinburgh, I just Google for a full Scottish breakfast.
Tatty scones and a square sausage.
Unbelievable. Yeah, have you had them?
I've had tatters, but no.
Tatty scones on a full Scottish breakfast. Sorry,
You're going to get us in trouble here. Then we're representing, got Mr. Scotland sitting across and you keep saying English. There we go. But no, I've never actually. I've had a square sausage. This is getting really seeded. Yeah, like, normally I'm used to my round, long sausage, but never square.
Did it go to? Did you start on mini motos then? Or?
Yeah, I mean, my dad got me a PW50 when I was 18 months old. I started riding it when I was 3, when I could actually touch the ground. And then really from then, I wanted to race, but the youngest you could race was 6. So it was like from 3 to the age of 6, I was at my dad every day, I want to race, I want to race, I want to race. Nothing ever coming from him going, oh, you're going to race a bike, you're going to race a bike. It all came from me.
That was my next question. Was your dad a motocross dad? Or quite the opposite?
Nah, my dad was pretty chilled out. Obviously, well, he's had bikes since he was 11 years old. So bikes run in the family. My granddad had bikes as well. So, you know, it's always been one of those things that I've never known anything but bikes. Abby, my girlfriend, always complains to me. She's always like, do you ever not think about bikes when you go home? You go home from racing, it's like, you're going out on your mountain bike. I was like, yeah, it's got wheels.
That's the thing. Abby, obviously, we've got Abby in the studio as well. Sorry, love. This is what it is from now on. It is one process and one thing on the mind, and every bloke in this paddock is the exact same, isn't it? It is just constant bikes, and how we can get faster.
So what was the earliest racing that you did, proper racing?
Earliest racing, I think, was 2008 is when I started. Got my first mini bike at Christmas, and I was actually scared to open the box. I thought my mum and dad were going to kill me because Santa had got me a mini moto. I knew it was the biggest box in the room, and I had it on my Christmas list for like 2 years, and I was like, big box, there's got to be a mini bike. So I didn't open it till last. My mum and dad told me like a wee while ago that they were absolutely horrified because they thought, why isn't it opening it? Usually a 6-year-old could have been running to the box. Yeah.
Is the indoor tracks in Scotland?
Yeah, well, Kart Start in Kirkcaldy was the one for me. It was either there or Knockhill that were riding at mainly. So it was, through the winter you were straight into Kart Start for the indoor tracks. It was cold and it was filled with fumes, and you were kind of get to lunchtime, you couldn't see the other end of the shed. But it was one of those, from then on in, really, just racing mini bikes in Scotland for a couple of years.
See, I do a little bit of pit bike racing. Is there actually, obviously in England there's loads of different tracks and a very publicly
it's like a British mini bike championship.
British mini bike championship, and not only that, they advertise it very frequently about, oh, you can come here, come there.
Yeah.
Now I work in Scotland a lot, and to be honest, I've always thought about, well, if I get a slack afternoon, I'd like to chuck a bike in. Is there really that training side of it in Scotland? Is there go-kart tracks that you can go on mini
It's
bikes?
not as accessible as what it is in England. Obviously,
Yes.
England's not that accessible in terms of
Yes.
the real world either. But Scotland, really, the only place I can go and ride a bike is Knockhill. Like if I really needed to go and ride a bike during the week, I could probably get a track day at Knockhill, and they're really good with me as well. If I really desperately needed out, they'd get me out when I needed to.
All right.
Or Crail. It's like right in the east corner of Scotland. It's basically like a Phillip Island. It's like, you're going around the track, going in the back straight, and you can see the sea and everything. So you can go and ride like your supermotos and your pit bikes around there, and they've got a big airfield there that used to race like big bikes around as well.
Right.
It's a bit like East Fortune, but it's got a go-kart track on the side.
There we go.
Do you do any motocross or anything?
Nah, I'd rather jump my mountain bike than a motocross bike.
Fair enough. 'Cause
Really?
we've got a mate, Sugar Tit, who it goes up to, do you know Tane?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes up to Tane like between Christmas and New Year, and apparently that's like a mega motocross track by the coast, and you. We're on about going up this year for like.
It was right up north of Tane.
Yeah.
That's a good far up.
You don't do motocross, so it's just mountain biking and, well,
Whatever else I can do.
right.
It's just, mountain biking is probably my chosen sport, my second sport. If I wasn't racing motorbikes, I'd be racing mountain bikes. So it's,
Really?
yeah, it's what I like to do. It's one of those, I enjoy my training when I go mountain biking, and I feel like, especially during lockdown, you're still putting in a lot of the physical effort to get up the hill, because I was so buzzing to go back down.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was going back down, my mind was still working the same as like when you ride a real bike, you're picking your lines, or you got to get your braking points, you got to get your hops over things just right, and I feel like got my mind going as well, like how you're riding a race bike.
It's I've only had
incredible.
one day doing it, but it was on an e-bike, so I was kind of cheating. But it was
Kinda. No, that's not kinda. That is full on cheating.
over in the Lake District, but that is so enjoyable. And like you say, after like hours and hours of riding up and down hills, you'll have done like, I think we did like 40 mile in a day or something. But especially if you didn't have the e-bike, it would be a hell of a workout. Like.
Certainly if you didn't have the e-bike.
To be honest, so you went. Okay, I've got this wrong. So you went from PW50.
Yep.
What was your next bike after that?
Mini Moto. I went from PW to 50 to Mini Moto, and then from Mini Moto to Metric kits.
So you've literally gone tarmac. Like you've gone.
I'd never done any motocross when I was younger. I was one of those that went straight into riding on road.
That's incredible.
When you say Metric Kit, was that through Fab Racing?
That was through Fab Racing, yeah. I think when I was about 8 years old, I was doing the Scottish and I was competitive in the Scottish, and we thought, right, okay, the next step is to go down south and start getting on bigger bikes. So my dad got me a Mini GP50, which is the smallest of the Metric kits they do, 6-speed gears, 6-speed box on 12-inch wheels, and we went down south there, and that's when it all started, really.
Because I had a similar thing, but I did motocross, and then when my first Metric Kit, I went straight into the 70 class. But I thought I had it tough going down to like Lyd and Landau and places like that. But for you, that must have been like what, 13 hours or something.
It was a good. I can't remember what it was. I was like, I think it'd be school on a Thursday. Dad would come home from work. He'd go, right, we're off to Landau, and I'd jump in my bed and I'd be absolutely knackered, and then I'd sleep most of the way and wake up in the morning. My dad would be knackered. I'm like, why is he knackered? I didn't really get it at that point, but looking back on it now, it was some big miles he put in.
That must be 450 mile.
It's a good chunk. I mean, Lyd was. It's off the end of the country. You've actually got to cross the water.
So how long has it taken you and Abby to get here today? Have you come from Perth?
Yeah, we came from the home up in Perth, and then it was my dad drove down, so it was I'm not insured in the motorhome, you see. I'm not old enough because of the weight of it, so it's
drag it out. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not insured yet.
You must find it funny when we're racing at Knockhill and loads of the lads fly up from London, and you're like,
know,
we have to do this journey every single weekend.
Cheating, really.
It is, isn't it?
25 minutes for us to Knockhill. It's sound, but I think to here we got a good run in it, so we're about 8 or 9 hours. It wasn't too bad.
That's not.
It was a good run for Brand.
It was 7 for me, to be fair. So I'm steady mind. I don't,
No, that's incredible. But you see, the thing is, the pair of you have grown up in that world, haven't you? The travel's
the travel becomes a part of it, really.
I totally agree with that, and I actually like that element of it.
Perfect time to listen to some Chasing the Racing, isn't it? Like,
yeah, exactly.
People should be grateful, really.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
No, but the first time I came across your name and like sort of seen you in timesheets and stuff was the Aprilia Super Teens, and I won the championship in 2010. So
you had to drop that in, didn't you?
So you sort of,
my mate Callum Bay taking you all the way.
Yeah. You sort of keep track.
Good lad.
Track of the following champions, and you mentioned Callum Bay. Callum was actually out at Knockhill last week on an R6, and that kid had so much talent, and so he had such a good future ahead of him, and it was a massive shame that he didn't continue racing, because 12 years old I'd had the experience of doing this full Super Team, so I was like 14 and I knew all the tracks and like loads of experience, and this 12-year-old kid came up and he was my teammate, and he was just every race he was challenging us, and then he started beating us, and then I would beat him. And when you think like Jake Dixon was in the championship, you had some class riders, 44 things, and this 12-year-old kid just turned up and was like blitzing everyone, and he only raced the following season and then packed in, crying shame.
What was the reason behind that then? Was it?
It's just money, isn't it? That's at the end of the day, it all comes down to money. And I think Callum was struggling a little bit, but as you said, Chris, he was a great rider. I mean, I grew up with the likes of like Lewis Rollo riding mini bikes and Callum Bay, and then Abby's brother Ewan as well. Ewan Gray, they were all the quick boys when I was growing up, so I always idolised them. They were the people to beat. They were the top dogs at mini motos.
Mm-hmm.
That's meant, because I always refer back to, when you say the word talent, I always refer back to that book you read, Bounce, and how talent is essentially a myth, and it's about the lads like it's about, if you haven't read it, it's about like ping pong, and it's about how different postcodes and everything, but they're constantly playing or racing against the best in the world against each other on the frequent. So is that why? Well, that's clear fact, isn't it? These lads that you've just discussed about, you're at the top of your game, aren't you? So you're trying to kill each other when you're younger.
Who was your main competition in super teens?
Super teens, it was, well, Ed Best was there, Joey Thompson was there riding super teens that year, Georgina Polden as well. There was a few of us that season. It was a good year.
And was that your? Did you win it in your first year?
Yeah, I think I ended up becoming the youngest ever winner when I done it. But it was a tough season the whole way along. I think I won it on my 13th birthday at Donington. I remember.
I think I'm almost positive Fraser Rogers won it when he was 12.
Right. Okay.
And Lewis Rollo. I think Lewis Rollo won it when he was 12 as well. I think because at Oulton Park, there was me, Fraser, and Lewis on the podium, and were 3 super teams from like 2000. And Fraser won it when he was 12, when he was in 2009. And the same again, he was like a child prodigy.
Yeah.
And very similar to you, after winning the super teens, he then went to Racing Steps Foundation.
Yeah, me and Fraser were in a similar route really, going from Fab to super teens, and then from super teens to Spain.
And just for
hold on. What word did you just use there? Step.
Racing Steps Foundation.
Is this the Spaniard thing?
So you can explain.
Yeah,
that.
this Racing Steps Foundation was a self-made multi-billionaire, like that
Be nice.
guy who made himself millions and millions in the oil in the oil business himself, and he was passionate about racing. He was going to car races, and he was seeing drivers that were good but with no money being beaten by drivers that weren't that good but with a lot of money and the best machinery. So he started off in cars, and he started off giving the drivers who didn't have the money opportunities and giving them the good stuff, so then they started progressing. And he started doing the same with bikes as well. So he done it for a few years. He had Wayne Ryan, Fraser, Rogers, Kyle was in it for a bit, John McPhee. And we were all, well, not at the same time, but we were all out in Spain.
That racing in Spain it's like, for example, super teens. You know, if both your parents work full time and you sort of miss out on holidays and you get a little bit of help from things, you like a normal sort of family can afford super teens, or like can
At a real stretch.
at a stretch can afford to super teens. When you go to Spain and race Moto 3, it's like, to pay for a competitive ride, you're looking for 7 rounds. You're looking around the 200,000.
Yeah, anywhere from 130 to 200,000
like
euros.
130 is a shit ride, and that's 20,000 euros for the weekend, not including you getting there.
Yeah.
You know, it just becomes off the scale. So that's when Racing Steps step in.
And half the time you're crash damage as well.
So how did that like application work? Did you apply, or
They scout out for like young talent across the UK. They've got their eyes in different places, and they're always looking for somebody to come up. Unfortunately, they're no longer. The guy, obviously it was his own money. He was doing it for the love of the sport, and he just thought that was enough time he'd been in it. So I mean, fair enough to him. He didn't have to put his own money into it. It was a shame to see it go, really. But
it's I would say it's correct to say John McPhee probably wouldn't be in the position he is now if it wasn't for Racing Steps Foundation.
No, I think he'd agree with that as well.
Yeah, and maybe
what about you?
For yourself, you would never have had those opportunities.
I wouldn't have been able to go out into Spain. Us as a family, and even with the great sponsors I have, we wouldn't have been able to afford to go out to Spain for 3 years. So without them, really, that gave me a good basis to start racing like bigger tracks, bigger bikes.
And
hell.
like, for example, when we had the Mackenzies on, we were talking about like name dropping people who you've raced against in Spain. And when you look at old sheets from like the Spanish Championships and the Junior World Championships, the amount of talent that's in them. Who were you sort of bashing fairings with when you?
When my first round. Well, first like couple of rounds of Junior World Championship when I was 14, I finished across the line in 4th at Valencia, and in that race there was Lorenzo Dalla Porta, Juan Mir, Nicolo Balega, Aaron Canet, Albert Arenas. I just pipped Arbolino. Messia was in it.
It's basically just MotoGP.
Yeah, it was. I think it's 23 out of 28 in the Moto3 grid I've raced against.
So at what age is this?
This was when I was 14. It's 2015.
Now at 14, right, I was discovering boobs, and at 14 I was thinking boobs are fantastic at that point. So, at what point did that really sink in what you were doing? At this point, you've been scouted out, you've won super teens, and you're thinking that I can only imagine where your mind was. It's like, yeah, this is fun.
Probably not
doing
on boobs.
No,
not on boobs at that exact point. But
my mind was at other places.
There you go. But no, I'm trying to think. Right, I've been scouted out by a billionaire. I've got this opportunity, and you've just been like, you're coming over the line in 4th. Was that just like I'm going places, or was this just? I don't care. I just need to beat the next guy and beat the next guy.
You don't think about it too much, because at that point they were other riders. They've gone on to other things now, and you look back and you go,
wow,
"Jeez, that's pretty mental." But when I was 14, I didn't really think about that. I was like, nice one. I've just had the best race so far that I've had. Really enjoyable. Can't wait to get going next season.
Here's a question for you. Who's the best rider that you've ever beaten?
Best rider I've ever beaten.
Did you beat
Name drop.
Mir?
I didn't beat Mir because he went on to GPs that next year.
Yeah.
I'd say probably Marco Bezzecchi.
Fair enough. So there's good names in there
Well,
anyway.
or Arena. If
Yeah.
you look through the timing sheets and it's like, oh, okay.
And from the Junior World Championships, did you then get picked up from Red Bull Rookies?
Red Bull Rookies and Junior World Championship were at the same time. Once I'd won Super Teens, I went to the Rookies Cup selection, and I was lucky enough to get picked up for my first time at the selection event. So they both went hand in hand, which was really good.
And without sounding like a thicket, can you explain to our listeners what the Red Bull Rookie was? Like
the Red Bull Rookies is basically, they handpick 24 riders from around the world, not just Europe, around the world. And they all go into a championship that follows. It's basically another Junior World Championship that follows all the European MotoGP rounds, or a large majority of them. And everybody's on the same bikes. It's a bit like how the British Talent Cup worked. It's the same people that run it. Everybody's on the same bike. Everybody's got basically the same staff. There's one person to 4 bikes.
Same levers, same helmet.
Same leather, same boots, same bike. Literally everything is identical, and it's about the rider, and it's about how you can set up a bike with what you've got. And how you get on.
Amazing opportunity, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's all paid for by Red Bull. All you've got to do is turn up, and you got to pay your flights, and you got to pay your accommodation. You got to be at the track.
How was it? What was your dad thinking of all this? It must have been. He was
like,
wow.
we've won the lottery twice, because obviously being picked up by Racing Stets Foundation and the Red Bull Rookies Cup at the same time, it was just like one of those. It was I didn't realise it at the time because I was so young. I was just like, I gotta go racing in Europe next year. Yeah, I just can't wait.
That's what I mean.
Do you know
it's
when when you add up the value of, like, for example, that one year's racing with Racing Steps, you know, if you were to pay for that ride, you would be talking around the sort of 200,000 euros.
You'd be best part of 200,000 euros.
And then added to the Red Bull Rookies, that's got to be, if you were going to pay...
They reckon it was about 150 to 200,000 euros as well.
So imagine if you seen stacked up in the sheets how much that 1 year of
I know,
racing...
after 3 years of doing both, you imagine you got shown the figure that would cost.
It's crazy.
You'd feel sick.
I know.
So how long did the Red Bulls Rookie last?
Red Bull Rookies, they can keep you on for a maximum of 3 years, but at the end of each
years,
at the end of each year, they take you in, talk to you, and they go. They decide if they want to keep you on for the next year or not. So I was lucky enough to be kept on for 3 years, and I mean, thanks to them, I was in it for 3 seasons, and it was a great learning. Really,
you got a race win as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I managed to win a race at Jerez, and I got a couple of podiums at like Aragon and Chasin and a pole.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great series, really.
And what if, do you know? I'd imagine it was
great. I'd be like, yes.
I'd imagine all the lads that in that tent together and sort of travelling all around Europe. You must have some good stories from
there's
14-year-old version of that. Yeah, there you go.
There's some pretty mental stuff that goes on in the awning and stuff. You imagine there's everybody from Europe. There's Russians, there's Americans, there's Spanish, Italian.
Was there any big pranksters or anything?
I can just imagine these Russian mafia coming in, guard, and you've got an out son on from Perth. You think you've got it rough?
Nah, it was all pretty chill. Everybody, it was one of the criteria that you had to speak English. So I mean, I had to learn a wee bit when I went in, but it wasn't too bad. It was
hence the telephone voice, Chrissy.
Was there any fights or anything?
Sorry?
Was there any fights or any scraps or?
There was some run-ins together. There was some pretty wild stuff going on. I don't know what I can say and what I can't say.
You can see anything you want.
It was pretty mental. I've seen some people getting flung across the room by each other, but it was pretty severe, to be honest. There was some pretty mad stuff going on. Obviously, when you're fighting for a championship at that level and you're fighting for a Moto3 ride, the tension does rise, and then there's people in there with egos, and there's more chilled out people, and it does. They butt ahead of it. But
Dad's scrapping.
Nah, dads are alright. They tend to
wind the kids up to do it.
Nah, they actually say that they prefer that the dads don't mechanic for you, because obviously the racer dad mentality, it's not just the UK, it's all over the world. So I mean, my dad, I trust everything my dad does, so he mechanic for me for the 3 years, and I mean, I wouldn't have rathered anyone else, to be honest, because he knows me, I know him. He knows when I'm having a rough day, and I know when he's having a bad day. So it was good to have him there.
And after the Red Bull Rookies, obviously after the 3 years, you then the British Talent Cup was then formed.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a new concept. There was the Asia Cup, and we've got a bit of a sort of a drought in British talent getting the opportunity to go into the World Championship. So it was a thing set up by Dorna, and it ran for, was it 1 or 2 years?
It was 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and first year...
Sorry, this is the British Talent Cup you're talking about?
Yeah.
It's still ongoing, isn't it?
No.
Well, it's not in the same form as what it started out in.
So
Right.
It's gone more to like the Honda standard Honda Cup
Yeah,
thing
so
that the BSB had before.
It was very similar to
Oh,
Red Bull
that's what I say,
Rookies.
because you're seeing people go around in the British Talent Cup.
It was very similar to Red Bull Rookies in the fact that it was a totally sponsored ride,
Got
and
you.
everything was paid for by Dorna. All the bikes looked the same, ran out of the same thing, all wore Alpine Stars and Shark helmets and all of that type of thing. Now they scrapped the Motostar class and they just call it the British Talent Cup. So it's just basically a replacement for the Motostar class.
yeah,
isn't it?
everybody they own the bikes themselves. They bring their own kit. and
What was the experience of the British Talent Cup?
It was good. I mean, obviously coming out and being an inaugural champion was nice. It was Dorna threw me a lifeline there. I kind of got left a bit high and dry at the end of 2017. But I mean, it was what it was. Managed to win the championship, but again, nothing really came out of it. It was the road to MotoGP, but it kind of ended up for me being the road to Stock 6.
So hold on, sorry, 2017, you've won the championship. What were potentially the options? I'm talking financial, but people were more coming up to you going, "Oh, you come ride for us, but you need to bring X amount." Or
When I came out of Red Bull Rookies in 2017, there was in Junior World Championship. I'd had a fairly good year. I had ups and downs, but I was still racing against some very credible people. But unfortunately, I didn't quite have the backing. John McPhee was in his kind of prime of Moto3 at that point. So not saying he's not in his prime now. He's doing a great job. But that's when John was given the big opportunities then. So it was one of those. They didn't really need another Brit in GPs at that point. So
right.
I was kind of in a sticky situation where I went. I didn't have the money ourselves to fund anything. Racing Steps Foundation had pulled out of sport at the end of 2017. So we were in a tough position, and we kind of ended up getting left quite late till the end of the season. We didn't know what to do. I got offered a couple of rides here and like Supersport and Stock 6, but it was one of those that Dorna were like, "Oh yeah, it's going to be the road to MotoGP," and what I got told, it was going to be the winner was going to be on the talent team program, and that was going to be the Junior World Championship again.
And that has happened now as well, hasn't it?
It has happened now, yeah, but
Bit
one
late,
year too
yeah.
1 year too late. And
Yeah.
obviously at the time when after you won the British Talent Cup and when you were sort of left in that sort of no man's land, I think that's around the time we started the podcast, and we've been consistent in saying like it would have been so great to see you get an opportunity. At the time we had John McPhee and Tom Booth Amos,
Yeah.
and I've always said if you'd had Tom Booth Amos's ride, I really feel like you could be challenging John McPhee right now. That's my personal
Yeah, I mean,
opinion.
You wouldn't be sitting here talking to two gibbering Geordie gobshites. So there you go. It's amazing how life throws you a left hook, isn't it?
it's easy to say I could have done this and I could have done that. Obviously,
Yes.
circumstances are different, and Tom's a great rider. He run away with the British Championship, so I mean he's doing a great job in World Supersport 300 at the minute. So it's one of those. I could say I could have done this, I could say I could have done that, but given the circumstances, it's one of those.
I know you
Oh,
don't
no,
want to blow your own trumpet, but it is just a crying shame that, for example, the year after there was a proper programme put in place by
Yeah.
Dawn as a follow-on.
Yeah, it's one of those, Chris. I could sit here and I could dwell on it, and I could go, I wish I'd done that, and I wish this had happened, I wish that had happened, but it didn't at the end of the day. So we're just getting on with the job.
Oh, which is it? No, so then you've gone, like you just said, like to Stock 600. But now that was a self-privateer job, wasn't it?
Yeah, me and my dad, we done it during the end of the British Talent Cup. Me and my dad kind of thought, right, I'm going to have to make the step onto a bigger bike soon. So we got sponsored a Kawasaki from one of the Kirkcaldy Kawasaki up in Scotland. So
Say that word again slowly.
Kirkcaldy.
Colcaldy. Got yeah. Sorry, there you go.
Yeah, they get Brian there. He gave me a bike to ride in the Scottish Championship at that point, just to kind of get my head around riding a bigger bike, because obviously jumping from a Moto 3 to a 600, it's about half the weight. So the 600 is double the weight of a Moto 3. So it was one of those. I had to learn how to ride with more power, and I had to learn manage a bigger bike. So
How to back it into the hairpin and knock it in.
yeah, send it sideways into Druids. But no, it was one of those. I learnt my trade up in Scotland in the club series, and then at the end of the year we done a couple of wild cards, and me and Ryan Vickers had a good few rounds, and Ryan was obviously praised a lot for being the next big thing out of Stock 600. So for me to come at the end of the year and go first year in a 600 to be pushing Ryan, I had a couple of little offs at the end of the year, but for my first few wild cards I was proper chuffed. And then the next year obviously left high and dry in the British Talent Cup, so me and my dad started a Supersport team, because that was the next step really.
And again, we were talking about this on the podcast because it was kind of like a crowdfunding effort a little bit.
Oh,
and,
we did. We set up a GoFundMe page because
yeah.
we were struggling that much.
And we were saying on the podcast like how crazy that was. Like you'd won one race at Red Bull Rookies, you'd won the British Talent Cup, and you were crowdfunding to do yourself in Supersport.
Yeah.
And it was it's almost as you know now, it's so difficult to run yourself.
Yeah.
You know, when there's proper teams like what you're in now.
Yeah.
But obviously it was a good learning year, and you kind of mastered the trade on the riding the 600, and then you got a great opportunity to join the reigning champions team after Jack Kennedy left, and obviously that's where we're sat here now, and a fabulous season. Just talk us through. We'll go through the season. Obviously, started with testing in Spain.
Yeah.
And then we had this like huge drought where the coronavirus thing.
The drought. That is a very political way of putting it. A slight drought in 2020. The COVID pandemic.
The standstill.
The standstill.
Going into the
dreaded
season, were you expecting it to go like this? Where did you sort of have your expectations?
After coming off of last year, managed to get a podium at Donington. We had a good few front two rows on our own privateer bike. So I thought, you know what, if we're to do it again on a privateer bike, I'd be aiming for like consistent top fours, maybe the odd podium here and there on our own bike. So when Robin picked me up and he's like, right, we're going to run you next year and this is what's happening, I thought, right, okay, if I can get us be consistent podiums each round, that's what I'll be more than happy with that. And then maybe the next year after that we can start pushing for a championship, pushing for race wins week in, week out. And we went testing in Spain, and it was one of those. I chilled out, I enjoyed myself, and it was just like the R6 and me really clicked. It felt a lot like riding a Moto3, a lot like riding a Grand Prix bike compared to the Kawasaki.
In what details?
It was more pinpoint. It felt like I could ride it more like how I wanted to ride it. I could take wider lines. I could ride it more like how I'd ride abroad.
Because you were on the 636, weren't you?
Yeah, well, it ended up being a hybrid. We started the season off on a 636, and then it wasn't really working, so we stopped. And in round 2, I ended up riding my stock 600 from the year before in Supersport. And then from then on in, we put the 636 engine in the 2011 chassis, and that's what we ran the rest of the season with.
Yeah, and I think Ben Curry's done the same thing this weekend.
Well, Ben Curry's went back to the 600. He's went completely back. Westy's been on the hybrid that we ran.
Right, okay.
He was given a right good chase.
Yeah.
He was given a right good chase.
Yeah,
So
I
that
mean,
seemed to have worked.
Ben gave me a good push today in the race. It was just hear this Kawasaki rigging in my helmet the whole way.
Is the 636? Does it not work something to do with the trail?
Well, no, it's the chassis is massively different.
I'm pretty sure the chassis is complete. Well, it looks the same. Everything bolts in the same, but the chassis, the making up of the chassis is pretty different. The link's completely different, and the forks are different. The trail, the yokes are all different. So there's
the actual setup, the actual.
I think it's designed to be stable for the road. I think. And
it's a sports tourer.
Yeah,
really.
There we are. But they say it's considerably more nervous, and you haven't got a window at all to play with.
Yeah, it's harder to get it going. The stock 6 boys have obviously spent a bit of time at it, getting it working, and they're doing a good job. And they're back at the lap times. But at that point, we didn't have the time to. We didn't have the time to do it. I could have been going quicker on a stock bike.
I was about to say, like, I mean, sorry, I'm going to point fingers at this, but it's a case of like, how much faster is your R6 compared to your Kawasaki?
Outright speed, it's probably about the same. I mean,
really?
Yeah, we've kind of done the motor ourselves as a family effort. We had a guy, Stuart Young, up in Scotland. He'd done a bit of head work for us before the start of the season, and then halfway through, my dad rebuilt it all, and we ended up with quite a strong motor.
I was about to say, because the thing is, like, you were starting mid pack, but the lap times, it was just like fastest lap, like back in the last year. Epic wheelies, may I just say. It was fantastic. 3rd place, Rory Skinner. Go on, son.
Where did you learn to wheelie, by the way?
On my Supermoto.
Really?
Anyway, that's a different bit. So, but you actually got to the point where you feel like the ZX6 was just as quick. Well,
in a straight line, it's just as quick. The 636 is a really strong motor. The R6 is just a really good all-rounder. It does everything. It's really strong the whole way through, and it's good top end as well.
Right, there we go.
And
so I'm trying to think of my options for next year. That's why I'm picking questions.
Going into the season, obviously we started at Donington National, and started as you mean to go on really, and win. And like I said, I think there's only 2 races this year you haven't won. What 2 were those?
It was race 1 at Oulton. Brad just got me over the line. I think it was like not even a tenth of a second he got me. And Donington race 1 when it was soaking wet and I came off at Old Hairpin.
Yeah, because if the maths had worked out, you would have won the championship with that race.
Yeah, I going into Donington race 1, I basically just needed to get 4 points on Brad, so I needed to win the race, and like if Brad finished second, but to be honest, I wanted to do it in style and I wanted to win the race, and I managed to pull a bit of a gaff, and I think it was like 3.6 seconds by the end of lap 1. I came around Redgate and I was like, nah, surely not. I actually laughed in my helmet. I was like, nah, that can't be happening. you know, a couple of laps later, it was sketchy conditions.
And didn't Brad go down in the same
Yeah,
race?
Brad. I got back to the garage and everybody's like, "Oh, you're right, Rory." I was like, "Yeah," you know, a bit annoyed by that, and as you would be. But and then turned around to the monitor and there's Brad sliding in the track. I was like, "Jeez."
And
Then Lee Johnson was leading it.
Yeah.
Then he binned it.
Yeah,
and
it
it was what a race that was.
It was pretty incredible, to be honest. It was one of those races. It was just so hard to stay on the bike.
Well, one thing we've been talking about, I've been talking about in the garage this weekend. I'm next to Brad Perry, and we've been chatting about stuff. And one of the things that the topics of conversation was all about the introduction of the Moto 2 class into the British Supersport. And now it's pretty mixed. I think there's about 15 or 16 of each.
Yeah.
From being on track, what do you make of the Moto 2 class?
I mean, Kyle done a great job on it last year. He was battling with
Beating
Jack the whole way.
He was actually got some race outright race wins. So I struggle to get that word out there.
No, I mean, Kyle done a great job in him last year, and I think, you know, this year we've been such a short season, and those bikes being quite pernickety and like more development wise than what the production bikes are. They've struggled a little bit more just to get there. Not had quite the right amount of testing, and they're still developing things. So.
From being on track, where do you think the losing to you on your bike?
We've got, well,
I know
weird.
it's different
It's
riders.
weird. Yeah, it's weird to say it. It's hard to say because I've not ridden both of them. So, I mean, really on paper, the GP2 should be a bit better in corner entry because it's got slicks and a bit of a harder carcass and better grip. You know, it's like riding on slicks. So just a lot more confidence all around. And mid-corner speed and stuff like that, they should be able to pull, and then out the corner it should even up quite well because they're about 20 horse down on what we've got, and it's you know, they're a bit lighter, but they're a bit less power, but they should be able to run more mid-speed and more exit and return. So, I mean, it's one of those. I don't know. I think it takes the right rider and the right bike at the right time to be up there.
You're not fancy having a chat with your team boss at Appleyard's end, trying to get a swap on a bike, you know, just for development reasons. Go pick up a GP2.
Oh, if you can find me a Calex for tomorrow morning, I'll give it a go.
Well, I'll give a shout out, you know, straight away. There we go, give it a go. Why not?
John Chapman to bring his down.
Well, aye, that's it. Just swing your leg over it. You'd love that. He'd be all over that.
Have you ever had a go on a Moto 2 bike?
Never had a go on a Moto 2. No, I'd quite like to have a go. I'd like to see what they're all about.
I think your style would massively suit. And it would obviously be great to have you in the Moto 2 class, but we'll have to see about that.
There we go.
On that topic of next season,
I was about to bring it up there.
Have you got anything lined up?
We're speaking to different people. It's one of those. It's been such a weird season that every race counts now.
Name
I
drop.
can't
Name drop.
drop.
This comes out a week after. We haven't even released the last one, so this is
can't
going to be
name
2
drop,
weeks,
Dom.
and the name's going to be out by then.
I could name drop someone. I could end up with a completely different team.
You might as well say Paul Bird, McCams. You know, let's pick out some names here.
I mean, you could pick some out of a hat, and then we'll just go along with it.
Well, okay. Let's go back. What do you want to do?
It's one of those. It depends on what the options are. I want to go somewhere where.
Oh no. Forget options.
No,
what is your dream?
My dream is to be back in Grand Prix paddock. Back where I was doing the rookies. It was one of those things that I really enjoyed being there, and I feel like having raced against a lot of those riders, I know myself. I'm not being cocky, but I know myself. I can do it, and I can beat them. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, given the same circumstances and the same amount of time on the bike, I feel like we can be there.
Mint.
It's just about. At the minute, it's just about trying to work out the best option for the next 2 or 3 years. Not next year. It's what comes after that.
So we've mentioned this in the podcast recently, but I personally would love to see have an opportunity in World Supersport. But as we've been talking about, even Locatelli this year has had to take like a massive amount of money to the team. I mean,
Locatelli's team called me up the other day and went, "Would quite like to ride our bike." I was like, "Oh, nice one." They went, "Yeah, we want £300,000." I was like, "No, bye bye."
Yeah. But
I want 300 grand. Not,
do you know,
not you. I want 300.
Do you know what the real sad thing about that is that, you know, a good few years ago there was a load of lads making a living out of racing World Supersport, and so there should be as well. There's some of the best riders in the world racing, putting on an amazing show for, you know, loads of people. And you just think, how sad is it that someone of your capabilities, who would definitely have a good chance of, you know, competing for the championship, is asking to take that sort of money. And if you don't take that sort of money, you're not going to be on one of the best bikes.
It's one of those. It's like you got to weigh it up. You got to weigh up whether it's worth working so hard for all the sponsors to try and get on board, and especially after this year. I mean, the whole coronavirus isn't just affected the racing and normal day life. It's affected every business. They're not going to want to put money. same amount of money in, but teams are wanting more money because it's going to cost them even more to go places.
There's just no guarantees leading into this period, is Ed?
No.
In sport and life in general, isn't it? So
without obviously if you don't want to answer this question, feel free not to. But other than Locatelli's team, have you been approached by other World Supersport?
We've went out and spoke to all the top Yamaha teams. We've seen who's wanting interest. We've seen what's realistic and what's not. So I mean, there's options in World Supersport. There's options in the BSB paddock. It's just trying to work out what's concrete and what's a good option.
Nothing in the Moto2 arena.
I didn't halfway through the season. I didn't feel like I was quite ready to go to Moto2. I felt like if I'd went to World Supersport and had a year on a 600 on European tracks, because European tracks are completely different to UK tracks. It's like
much more your riding style.
Yeah, they're wider, they're faster, they're more flowing. Not saying UK tracks aren't, but it's just a different style of riding.
It would just be that'll be like for our listeners. That'll be interesting to hear. You know, why is there such a? I've never ever been barely outside of Newcastle. I had to check my passport coming here. So, but it's like never mind you. But is it really that much? Is it?
It's just the way of life over there. They're used to riding those tracks since they're like 10 years old and 80s. So it's like they grow up riding those tracks, so they know how to get the best out of every bike at every corner. It's strange. When I went over to Spain when I was younger, taking a few rounds of getting used to riding, like keeping it right out in the white line on the way in and not peeling in too early. It sounds really easy to say, but you can quite easily get sucked into the corners and not realise it.
I've never seen anyone tip into Paddock Hill Bend as late as I was watching today, and there's quite a clear reference point of like a T on the track.
Yeah.
And it's interesting seeing where people cross that. But yeah, and same with Druids as well.
Yeah.
It's it's very. But
It
like
works.
I say, that
it makes sense once you see it, but it's one of those that is so hard to put into practice.
Yeah, sure. And like I say, it would be great. Obviously, I've got no doubt that if you make the step to British Superbikes, you'll do a phenomenal job. But for me, I would really like to see you have an opportunity in the world scene because obviously, if you want to get to the MotoGP paddock or World Superbikes, you can go either route.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you're going to do it, you will do it. But I just think it would be great to see.
It would be nice to be out there. I mean, with the pace that we're doing in testing at Jerez, it was like top 10 pace of World Supersport, and it was my third day on the bike. So it was one of those. It would have been nice to do a Donington wildcard this year if World Superbikes had come here, but the coronavirus put everything on hold, really.
Well, the good news is, before you walk through the door, me and Chrissy at Chasin the Racing here set up a GoFundMe page. We are £210,000 in. No, but like you say, it would be absolutely phenomenal for those opportunities to come up for you. It really would be. And I 100% agree with Chrissy, and I think everyone listening to this will agree with us and say you deserve these opportunities.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Dom. It's just one of those. It's a tough situation for everyone, really. We'll wait and see. We'll see what offers come, and we'll see what's right, and we won't just rush into anything. I won't rush into a ride because I want to be a British Superbike rider. I won't just go. I want to be a world championship rider. I'll take the right choice, and I've got good people around me.
There we go. Right, I'm going to get in with my question before I forget it because I'll kick myself if I miss this opportunity. Now, your old man being a TT rider.
Yeah.
You ever thought of it yourself?
Nah, I went over to Northwest when he done it a couple of times, but it's one of those. I respect what you boys do, but I could never do it myself. No,
fair enough. No, we say that all the time.
Yeah,
it's like
I couldn't do it. Like
Yeah.
I feel like the margin for error is so slim. Obviously the margin for error is slim in a racetrack, but the consequences aren't. It's not like there's a telegraph pole just at the other side of the curb.
Exactly, there we are. Yes. No, but that's the thing. We appreciate, it's the honest answer. A lot of people, especially when we started this, were going, well, bollocks. If you don't want to do it, you want to do it.
Yeah.
And we respect that. And, well, you're doing an awesome job of doing what you're doing, so stay there.
Did you get to see the British Superbike race today?
Yeah.
That was easily the best British Superbike race I've ever watched.
Yeah.
In terms of not the last lap or obviously we've had some amazing races here with Brands GP.
It was like the last lap every lap.
Yeah, and I've never seen as many overtaking manoeuvres. And known what's in it as well with the likes of the difference in the championship between Brooks, Idden, O'Halloran and Glenn, and how much how much it means to all of them four, and to see them mixing it like they were was just I've never seen anything like it, and I was screaming.
We were all in the garage as well going, no way, there's no space for that, and they're just riding up the inside each other. It was one of those. It was
who do you fancy for the Superbike championship?
I don't know. It's
But
weird. You say
on.
one person to start a race, 3 laps later you change it, and it's like, I don't know. It's only going to be one of those. It's going to be who can stay on it and who can keep the head tomorrow, I think.
By the time this podcast goes out, the championship will already be
Yeah,
decided.
I know.
So.
Come on, put a name just for the crack.
For a
Come on,
while
just-
ago, I've backed,
just for the crack.
I've backed Iden and Brooks.
Yeah, I'd say Eden looked really good today. Brooks, obviously he's good round here, but then O'Halloran's coming into the mix, and he was on it today.
Yeah.
He's got a taste for it, hasn't he?
But then Glenn on the new Honda, that's their first time here in the Honda, and he was right up there. So who knows what they're going to do tomorrow?
Buchan had a mega ride as well. He seemed to be miles back early on, but then as he came through, it was like unreal.
And it was the same with Taz. Taz started off quite far back, and then he just got more, and 5 laps to go.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And I mean, for me, BSB's never been as good as it is now. It's so entertaining.
Such a competitive field in it as well.
It's funny how usually they artificially make it really close at the end of the season through using the showdown, and this the first year that they haven't done it for a while, and it's like the biggest showdown of all showdowns. And I'm obviously, like, it's Saturday night now, so we've got 2 British Superbike races tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to it. Also, quick shout out to Ben Luxton, who wrapped up the Stock 600 Championship today on the 600. He won the race as well with that. But was it Rhys Irwin that he passed?
Nah, he just pipped TJ Toms on the line. Rhys Irwin's chain broken, like coming out of what's the banked one before Clearways? The left. Sterling's chain snap coming out of Sterling's there, I think lap 3 or 4. So he just missed out on it. But, well done to Ben. He's been in it for a good few years now, so to get it wrapped up, that's good for him.
Do you have many mates in the paddock? Do you knock about with any of that?
It's weird. A couple of years ago, there used to be a big group of everybody going about. Now it's kind of just singled out, and I've got my mates. Jack Nixon's one of them. Rhys Irwin's the other, and you don't need a lot of mates. You just need good ones.
Yeah, good. I like that.
Deep. I like that.
Rhys has had a fantastic journey first year on the 600 and riding his brother's old bike as well. And I think he had a chance of winning. He was in the sort of top
he was
three
a championship contender going into that race there.
Are we talking the Irwins?
Well,
No. I'll tell you what. No, I was actually speaking to Andy Irwin there. There's a lad in your race. I can't even pronounce his surname. He haven't raced a bike in 3 years, and he's come back. He's got an R6, and he's come straight to here. He has no tools, nothing, warmers, nothing. He's having to lend everything. The clip-on loosened on him, and Andrew Irwin's had to tighten it up. He's literally turned up on the seat of his pants, and he's riding number 22 on an R6, right? Connellan. I think that every Irish person listens to this because that's not how you pronounce that name. But I tell you what, a shout out to him. But if he
fair play for turning up here and just doing that.
He's literally just tipped up. He's come from Carrickford. He lives down the road from the Irwins, and he's just tipped up for the crack. So when you're going round tomorrow and you see number 22, just give him a hand. Crack on, son.
Big thumbs up.
Big thumbs up, and just watch him go around.
Obviously, this is the last race meeting for a good while now, and but certainly for the season. What does the rest of the year hold out for you?
Mountain biking,
basically.
Mountain biking and talking Abby about bikes.
Basically, well, Abby's got I've got an e-bike as well from my dad, so Abby comes out an e-bike with us. So I'm going home. I'm going up Fort William with like Lewis Rollo and Paul McClung and all that lot. And then when we get home, so
how is Paul anyway?
He's good. I was out with him last weekend. He's just doing away fine. He's got his own little like fabricating business now, so he's just going around his local area doing jobs. Fantastic,
because he had a big smash with Barry Teasdale,
and
then
Silverstone,
and he came back to racing, very strong at that. But he just ran out of money, didn't he? Bless him, because he could ride a bike that lad, like without a doubt. But no, I think I'm gonna kick myself because you're gonna leave here and go, I wish I asked that. I wish we did this and did that. But all seriousness, congratulations yet again, British Supersport champion. Rory Skinner, thank you very much.
Fabulous season, and thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And cheers, Abby. Thank you for putting up with listening to more bikes. There we go. And we'll catch you later on. Thank you very much.
Very best of luck for tomorrow.
You too, Chrissy.
Take care.
Click, buy, deliver with the 2-time Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year, Colchester, Kawasaki. Proud sponsors of Chasin, the Racin.